Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to episode number 30 of Coffee with Campus Consultancy. Good morning, all. If you're out there today, let us know, tune in, let us know in the comments. Feel free to jump on the link too. I'm going to jump on LinkedIn and share that link with you so you can jump on board. And in just a moment, after this very quick introduction, I'm actually going to introduce you to the man himself who produced and created the video that you're about to see. So sit back, relax, watch it, enjoy it. And then we're going to be talking all about how video can help expand your personal brand. Straight after this. The man himself, Anthony. How are you, my friend?
Morning. Very well, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, and also thanks for the awesome video to kick off every episode. It's been cool, man.
Are you sick of the song yet?
I'm not sick of the song yet at all. Look, every time I see my face flashed up 20 different times, but I guess that's what you do when you put yourself out there. It's very cool. Mate, tell me, firstly, thanks for coming on. Secondly, and if you're listening in, please comment below, let us know. We can flash those comments up. We'd love to see that you're here. But Anthony, why video? How does video help someone expand their personal brand? What's that all about?
Of course. I guess with video, where it started from me is like I had a total fascination with it, with early YouTube, and just seeing like the entertainment value and the amount of influence they had, like even early on before sort of influencer marketing and brand deals were sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And then I guess like now, like with the rise of social media and stuff, like brands right now is probably one of the most important things I'd say, if in terms of like starting a business or doing any sort of change or making sort of influence in the world. Because like, to put it plain and simple, like people trust people faces over sort of logos and stuff. So I think with video especially, you can sort of build that trust and credibility among, you know, your audience. Because I know you're big on that stat where it's like 10% of communication is words, like just verbal words.
Whereas
video,
like 38.7.
Yeah. So videos, you can capture the tonality, body language, like what we're doing right now, which is super cool. So I
love it. And when did it start for you? Like, were you started uni and you just pulled the iPhone out and started recording, or did it come a little bit later? Was it before uni? What did it look like for you?
So like I said, like video was always sort of a childhood curiosity of mine because of early YouTube. And then luckily for me, my mum had, you know, one of those old Sony camcorders. So I'd be running around my street with my neighbors doing like little skits, and they're just trying to copy my favorite YouTubers. But then I guess where it started, it was back about 2 years ago now in my second year of uni. And at the time, you know, like I was doing the old same routine sort of thing, bit unfulfilled, feeling a bit, not the best. And then, I sort of like lent back into that childhood curiosity, started learning a bit more about, you know, how video editing works, started watching a bit of YouTube tutorials, and that sort of sparked it from there. And then, in my first job, I was able to, edit a video for my boss, and then it sort of picked up from there, really.
Yeah, awesome. So I think that's really cool, and especially one of those things we hear a lot about is, you know, you bring the younger person into the workforce and you go, you must know how to run social media, or you must know how to use, you know, create video or whatnot. What did that look like when all of a sudden video became something you were being like paid to do at work?
Yeah,
something that was a hobby.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal actually. Like that moment where I realized that, like me creating that video for them, they actually saw value in that and were willing to like pay me actual money to do. It was pretty full on at the time, but it was exciting as well because I remember like I watched maybe 20 YouTube tutorials like the month before, and then here I am getting asked to edit a video. So as soon as like I got asked that and got offered to earn a bit of cash from that, I jumped on YouTube straight away and was just like researching. And then I went straight to Deakin University, went to the library and just started editing until like 1 a.m. And then I like that was like the first time I like entered that sort of flow state.
Yes.
And then I started like going, yeah, I could probably, this is probably something I want to like look into a bit more. And then yeah,
it.
it's sort of progress from there.
Cool. And what are some of those early learnings? Like, what did you learn early on that if people are watching today, and like one of the things we want to encourage you to do is, what would it mean for you to put your first video out today, whether that's on LinkedIn or on Facebook? And for some people, that's a massively daunting and intimidating task, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and I totally understand. Like, even me putting out my first LinkedIn post, it took me so long. I know you like, you had to push me a little there when I remember coming to you and asking like, how can I make my first post? How do I like build up the courage and that sort of thing? And it's definitely a process. It takes time.
yes.
And it's a very courageous thing to, you know, not only show up on social media, but put your face in front of a video. It's very daunting. I can definitely understand, but
I think so too. And I think your point there of like showing up on social media, I think we can make a really clear distinction here of it's what I'm asking people to do is spend way less time on social media, but spend much more time personal branding.
Yeah.
So like
100%.
For the sake of their career, their mission, the impact, the change they want to have in the world, in a very like, I suppose, academic theory of change, there's your inputs, your activities, your outputs, and your outcomes. And for me, I just think with the inputs and resources we have in the world of free technology, like this show is basically free. It'd be like a $500,000 show to produce this 20 years ago, you know?
And it's funny because all the TV show hosts, they're jumping on YouTube doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
With the same similar sort of equipment and budget. So it's funny to see.
For sure. And even like, you know, even the Gary Vee thing, who's a shared friend for us, I was watching his Tea with Gary Vee yesterday, and he's on there going, "Oh, we've just got LinkedIn comments. Like, is it working, Dustin? Like, how do we get the LinkedIn comments up there?" Like, everyone. So it's like we're learning, and he's like, "Yeah, I use this platform StreamYard, which is the first time I think he's name dropped it. So I'm sure this platform's going to explode."
Yeah.
But we're all learning in real time, and that's like when you said, you know, I got this gig, and I was like, "How do I do this? I should go to the library and figure it out." Like that's how the real world works. And there's this myth that adults have it figured out. And it's like, Yuval Noah Harari said this. He's like, stop relying on the adults. It's like, we mean well, but we don't have a clue what we're doing. You know, like with all due respect, adults, I love you. I'm one of you. I'm in your tribe. But like, we don't know what we're doing. No one does. Like, it's changing so quick. So yeah, I love that you're just like that idea of like, I'm in this situation. I'm going to figure it out. And you were willing to put in the work too, which is like one of the reasons I just admire everything you do so much. Anyway, I don't know where you can take that. There was no question in there. So let's lean on your expertise. Anthony, people are thinking, okay, I might start creating video. What are some simple tips, or what are some things that you see people commonly doing wrong? And I probably do a bunch of them as well. So I'm happy to listen and learn.
Yeah. Probably the first thing is just overthinking it and attaching yourself to sort of the end result with the video. Like, I know for me, when I started creating content, it was always like, what's going to be the perfect piece of content? And trying to predict the next, like, you know, popular piece of content and sort of chasing the vanity in like the metrics and stuff, the likes, the followers. Whereas I'm sure, you know, it's all about just sharing as you go. Like I'm sure every day you sort of pick up something that you would be able to share or someone else would find interesting. Like make a post, make a quick selfie video, and just put it out there and just let the market sort of give you the feedback, not sort of let the market decide on what resonates with them instead of trying to assume what works, I reckon.
Cool. So let's get super practical. You're a student out there. You want to either land a job, you want to make an impression, you want to meet somebody, you want to go do something differently.
Yeah.
How can people use video to reach out to people and do something a little bit different rather than just the cold email?
Yeah. So like I can use a really great example is at the start of the year I have 1 credit point left in my degree. So I was obviously looking in the market looking for an internship. So I was like scanning sort of the job boards. And then I came across one, but it was actually a day late to submit any applications. And it was a really like premier sort of marketing agency in Melbourne. So like they were asking for like, you know, the typical CV cover letter and stuff, but me being me, I was like, all right, how am I going to stand out from the crowd? So I use a really cool software called Loom. So it's like a screen sharing software. So you can like share your screen and then you have like a little circle of yourself in the corner. So I actually recorded a video message. So it was about like 2 to 4 minutes. And then all it was me introducing myself on video. I went on their website, just like made like just like gave them like 3 to 5 compliments, just saying I love what you were doing. I love the recent like sort of client that you're working with. And then I showed them a bit of my work as well. And then took that video, sent them a link to their email. And then in my subject heading, I was just like, I think my subject line was like "room for one more?" question mark. And then I sent that through, and then the next day, their like head of operations hit me back up, and we did like a virtual interview. So it was pretty sick. And the job post was expired as well. So I think video messages like that and reaching out in a very different way will definitely set you apart from the crowd for sure.
Yes, that is so good. Anthony, Olivia's jumping in, and for context, Olivia works with RMIT Activator, does a whole bunch there. So a lot of startups, students, and alumni staff, everything there. And interested in the idea of content versus personal vulnerability. What works best to share? What feedback have you got? What do you think?
I'm huge on being able to show your vulnerabilities and insecurities, especially online, because you know we see everyone show their highlights. It's like when I'm on Instagram, it's a highlight reel, right? Everyone's showing their wins, never sharing their losses, which is fine. But also, if you want to create that very authentic relationship with anyone or with your audience online, I think being able to show your vulnerabilities and being open to, you know, your personal problems is really powerful. And I think for me, the more I sort of share my vulnerabilities, it gives the other person on the other side to share theirs as well. Yes. And I think that's a really powerful way to build authentic relationships online. So I'd say sharing your story, being vulnerable is probably the best way to share content.
I love it. And for a mutual, someone we both admire, I know in Brene Brown's work, all her work is that vulnerability comes before trust. So people like vulnerability, how does that help? Do you want your students to trust you? Yes or no? Do you want your staff to trust you? Yes or no? Do you want your customers to trust you? Yes or no? And if that's a hard question, have you ever bought from a brand you don't trust? If you have, maybe it's like, oh, I should reconsider my purchasing decisions. But often we trust and we build relationships and we engage deeply with people that we trust. And the problem is you've got to be vulnerable first, and leaders go first. So like when you string these concepts together, if trust is the outcome, or, you know, some sort of change, and the way to get that change is people to engage with you, and to get them to engage with you, you need trust. So to get trust, someone has to be vulnerable first. And the leader doesn't sit there with their arms crossed and go, okay, tell me all your problems, right? The leader's like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm working towards. I can't figure this thing out. Can you help me? Like that part of documenting your journey, I think is a really tangible way to be vulnerable. So like today, if someone was to make a vulnerability video and they were to share something, and I'll throw it over Anthony for an idea from you. One thing from me could be share one challenge you've been through this week. Sit down with an iPhone, literally flick it on and be like, hey guys, this week, one of the things I'm thinking about is this. I'm trying to get to this outcome. I tried these 3 things. It's not quite working. Does anyone have any advice or insights? Like send. And it's a 15-second video. And if you get 2 comments and one of them's a half decent idea, like amazing. But even more importantly, you're putting yourself out there. Anthony, if someone was to create a piece of content and show a bit of their process or their struggle, what could that look like? What do you think?
It could be as easy as just recording a 15-30-second video on your phone, and like you can even tag me and Josh if you feel a bit if that's a bit daunting for you for the first sort of post. But I think like vulnerability is an opportunity to be 100% yourself. So don't I reckon don't see it as it's like a sort of a chink in the armor. It's you're like showing your weakness to the world. I think see it as an opportunity to show who you really are. Definitely.
Mate, that's golden. That idea that vulnerability is a chance to be 100% yourself. I think that's spot on. Where do you think now that I feel like you're really in your element. One of the things I really admire, people don't know, when we met, kind of a student in a course, and then we were learning about entrepreneurship. And I just love the thing that jumped out to me when I remember you in the course of, you always had these two things. One, you always had this energy, which I could never really quite figure out. You were just super energetic. But two, you were also, after every workshop before you left, you always said, "Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate that." Like, you made a note of saying thank you at the end of each session. And it really stood out to me because not everybody does that. And now I feel like I've seen you kind of go from that, and now you're in your element running A&G Media, and, you know, you're giving work to other people and being employed, and you're really in your flow state. It seems like, I could be wrong, but it seems like you're really in your zone. So in that transition from building this business and now helping lots of people with their video content, was there anything you sort of learned or realized about yourself and what it means to be 100% you when you are producing video or you are building a business?
Yeah. Like when we first met, to be like completely frank, I was completely lost, which is why I was like so immersed in like your teachings, because I was like, this dude is like switched on. It sounds like he knows exactly like his mission, his like purpose in life. And I was like, damn, like that's sort of like the benchmark I want to get to, which is why I like wanted to lean in as much as I could, which is why I stuck around and asked you heaps of questions about LinkedIn.
I love it.
But yeah, I think, man.
So what did you learn about yourself in that process? Because I guess you can learn from others, and I learned from others as well.
Yeah.
You know, I was inspired.
Like the number one thing I probably learned is stop putting pressure on yourself to have it figured out. Because like you said, we never have it all figured out. It's honestly a process. Like just by putting yourself out there and doing, I don't know, small things, it's going to compound into, I don't know, something really big. And you're gonna learn a lot more about yourself than if you stay stagnant and not do anything. So I think just by like me staying back and asking a few questions, I picked up a few things, applied it, did my first few LinkedIn posts through that. Just by leaning into, people like yourself, leaning into your network, asking questions, starting conversations, I think that's going to propel you to,
Cool. I love, so far you've been super practical and tangible when you're saying, you know, jumping on Loom, recording a video, screen share, sending that into an employer. I think that's such a cool idea. I'm definitely going to use that in workshops with students. I'm going to take a little clip of this and be like, try this out. I think that's such a cool idea. And we're just, as a quick side note, we've got someone listening in, Shedza from South Africa, up just after midnight to tune in. So that's super cool.
Hey, my man.
Super cool. People all over, which is great. So that's a really practical thing to do. And I think for students, that's such an interesting way of like sending in a video. I got excited even when you said it was a day after the deadline. I had that same experience with getting a job once at TEDx Melbourne. So I think that's cool.
There you go.
What's that next thing though? Let's keep it practical, because I know you're so action oriented. So cool. You apply for a job after the deadline, you send in a video on Loom. Awesome. With people are going, okay, it's coming towards the end of May. What is it? 22nd of May. So there's a week left in May. If it was like make your first movie May, if the last week was make your first movie May, and someone would have put out one video on LinkedIn or whatever platform they think is relevant for them, what could people do that would strike that balance between not being overproduced, because you just do it with an iPhone, but not looking unprofessional? It's one of the big things I hear people worry about, like, is it professional for me just to take a selfie video? So what could that first video look like for people if they were to put it out?
Yeah. Is this to potentially get an internship, or just like sort of for their personal brand?
Well, yeah. What do you think the sort of value is of putting out a video for your personal brand? Like, what does that do that you can't get done? I mean, you said the body language, but you know, rather than writing a big long text post, where do you think that role of video comes in for people? Let me reframe. The people who listen to these videos are mainly in three categories. One, students. Students are normally looking for jobs. Two, university staff members. They're normally looking to engage students or help students get jobs, everything that students want. And three, sort of entrepreneurs, people who run their own businesses, starting their own businesses. So what sort of video could either a student do to get a job, a staff member do to engage or relate with their students, or three, an entrepreneur could do to build trust with their community and potentially their customers?
Of course. Yeah, easy. Like I say this to everyone, like the first piece of content that anyone can do is just starting with their why, their story. And when we first met, you asked me, like, what you asked everyone in the room, what's your comic book story? And I think that's a really powerful question, because it makes you really dig deep into like why you're here now. What sort of things did you pick up along the way in your childhood? Or maybe there was something like a crazy story that happened in middle school that led you to where you're at now, like something like that. Because stories is something that that we share all in common. You know, we're hardwired to love stories, which is why stories is really powerful right now, especially for building brand online. So like tell your story. And if it's a bit hard to sort of self-reflect, I don't know, start with something that maybe happened this week, or maybe the first week of COVID, did something like strike out to you? Did you start leaning into yoga, and then you started finding a passion into yoga? So maybe that's something you could chase as like a side hobby right now. Yeah, just leaning into your why story, I reckon.
Cool. And on a really practical front, I remember when I started sharing videos, so say this is potentially for staff who listen in, who might be in the graduate recruitment space. That's probably a space I should mention as well. So spend some time there. One of the first things I did when I started making videos, and this is when I realized it was powerful, was I started doing these selfie videos, and I was putting them up on LinkedIn.
I think I remember those.
Yeah, like ages ago, right?
Yeah.
Probably even before we met. And one of the things I noticed was I'd go on campus and I'd speak to students, and then I'd reflect on one question that someone from the audience had asked. So I do these like presentations. I was recruiting for this company, and then at the end we do Q&A, and that was always my favorite bit. And I kind of missed that. Now, it was part of the reason I wanted to do this show. And at the end, I'd pick one of those questions, and then I'd pull my phone out, and I'd literally be like walking off campus, or I'd stand somewhere with a nice background, and I'd say, hey, today I was at University of Melbourne, and a student asked about this. The way to think about it is this. And normally it was like question answer. It was like, when is your application deadline? And I'd be like, it closes on the 2nd of April. And then like, it was a very neat, it wasn't very philosophical. It was just neat. And little tips. And then what I do quite practically is I tag everyone who was there. And by the way, that doesn't work if you spam people. The LinkedIn algorithm only works if people like it or respond to it.
Yes,
if you comment and tag 50 people, it looks so trashy.
If
they have nothing to do with the event, if they're not in the photo, that doesn't work. It sends you backwards. But if they're actually at the event and you're like, thank you for coming, one of the things I noticed was it'd give me a second touch point with that person. It had reinforced the learning. And then I was amazed by how many conversations started popping up in the office of people going, hey, I saw your video. Oh, you're at University of Melbourne this week. Oh, the application's on the 2nd of April. Like people were starting conversations with me based on these little like simple videos. And I was like, wow, that's, for some reason it cuts through. And the insight I got was, particularly on LinkedIn, less than, I think it's like, I can't remember the exact number. It's like 2% of people, I think it's 2%. 2% of people create, or it might be 0.2. I can't remember that stat. It's in one of our presentations. I have to find it. It's a minuscule number of people actually regularly produce content on a monthly basis. It's tiny. And so when the people go to their feed, they often go, oh, you're the only person in my feed. It's like, so I'm the only one producing content every day. So anyway, that idea of starting a conversation was really powerful.
And like, although it's very simple idea, those sort of pieces of content is what has the most value, I reckon, because you're addressing a real life question that probably that person and maybe 10, 20 other people have as well. And I think like another content ideas that's really powerful for your first piece of content, and if anyone's looking to create their first piece of content on LinkedIn, is start with, like, you could do like a hashtag question of the day. Like, you probably got about 50 people in your inboxes asking you all sorts of questions. Like, for example, you could take those questions and make a post about them, like a day, like one day of the week, hashtag question of the day, and then you could jump on camera and be like going through each question, doing like a 10, 20-second answer video. That'd be really powerful as well. And like recently LinkedIn have like a poll feature now. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
I haven't got access to it yet, but next week I've got Andy coming on who does.
So
I'm going to be chatting about that.
yeah, so there's a lot of play there as well, with replying with videos. So yeah.
Cool. All right, I want to jump into another question from Olivia, but I just wanted to pull up that source. It's less than 0.5% of people create content weekly.
It's crazy.
So
Point
out of 200 people, less than one of them are posting every week.
And what's that? What that is telling me is like there's so much like real estate, like so much space and opportunity for people like us to show up and take advantage of that.
Yeah, share it with the world too, especially now when we're trying, at least our missions are to help people do things that matter and that bring value to their lives, So, you jumping on and making a video for this, and then we're trying to get people to talk about leadership and vulnerability and helping promote and help students. Like I think there's a very nice feedback loop there. But Olivia's jumped in really, really practically, openings and closings. So one of the things I realized for this was like, I knew that it was important. So I reached out to a pro like you and was like, hey, what do we do about the opening? And you hooked us up, which was awesome. What do you think makes a great opening or a great closing? How do you make them sing?
I think it's going to be short and snappy. You want to which is why I wanted to make it 15 seconds max, because you want to capture the attention, but you also don't want to lose them as well. So nice, short, snappy opening, upbeat sort of music, get the heart rate up because you want to, pump them up with the energy. So I think, keep it short and snappy, keep it energetic, and sort of make it resonate with your brand as well, because you're giving sort of a teaser or insight into what the user's going to see for the next 30 or 60 minutes. So and have fun with it, and include some snippets. That's why I include a lot of video clips in the opening for Josh. I wanted to make sure I could showcase sort of some of his highlights as well and what he does as well. So keep it very relevant, short, snappy, and high energy.
Cool. And what about closings? This is something that I sort of just say, we'll see you tomorrow, and I give a bit of a wave. I sort of end sometimes with a question or a call to action. What do you think is best practice there?
Closings, I reckon it'd be really powerful to sort of keep it open-ended, build a bit of curiosity for your next sort of post or video would be good, because you want to retain as much of that viewership or audience as you can, especially if they're new. They've shown interest and they want to maybe know a bit more or what to expect next. So although it's called a close, maybe keep it a bit open as well. Keep it a bit open-ended. But also call to actions I'm huge on, as well as for yourself, you could leave an inspiring message, or your quote of the day would be really powerful. I know a few people do that as well when they're closings.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. And maybe I think that idea of what you mentioned before I'm just going to type it up as a banner of what questions would you like to see? So rather, this is how we actually do video on the fly, making it up. This is all trying to continual improvement. What would you like to see answered on this show in the future? So I'm just going to enter that in. And as we're not at the end of the show yet, but I'd love to hear some things in the comments. We'll flash them up on the screen. These could be some things that we answered today, but also could just be things in the future. So anything leadership, student leadership, whether it's earlier emerging brands, social media, social enterprise, video, LinkedIn, career, internship, grad job, changing careers, finding a career with purpose, all the kind of stuff that we've talked about in the first 30 episodes. As we start to look towards the next series, and we've got 5 amazing guests already teed up for next week, so we'll tell you about those. But as we move towards episode 40, episodes 50, and see how far we go, what sort of questions would you like answered? I'd love to see in the comments. So if you've got a second, please jump in the comments below and let us know what you'd like to see. We'll flash some of them up, but we'll also try to answer some of them in the future. Shedsad's already saying he's writing up a short post and would love your feedback on defining your why. So that's definitely very Shed's a
tag us.
Let us know so we can share it around. Daniel's just sharing a bit of love, which I love.
Hey, Daniel.
Daniel was great too. One of the things we do when Daniel was on the show, we shared the, I think it's Bill Burnett's TED Talk on sort of using design thinking to shape your life, which is amazing. And now I share with students all the time. It's been such an insight.
I just recently listened to his podcast this week as well, because I spoke to one of his old employees. She found me through your live stream, which is funny how how the world
Oh, no
works.
way.
Yeah. And we jumped on a Zoom call, had a chat, and she told me about Daniel. It was pretty cool.
So she found you through this, and she worked with Daniel. She found you, and then you found Daniel.
Yeah.
I love
and then
it.
I listened to, and then from there she like recommended me his podcast. So
cool.
And
yeah,
he speaks a lot about his why. His episode 1 on his podcast is all about the why, which is what we were talking about before. So
yeah, super cool. Well, huge plug there for Daniel and Ty's podcast. It's absolutely awesome. Yeah, it was fun. That was one of I think we did an episode on that. I recorded it just with Ty. I think Dan was working, but it was one of my favorite podcasts ever. Like we just were in. Ty's got such a good energy. Both those guys are just awesome. So if you've got some time on a Friday over the weekend, check out that podcast. It's absolutely great. Olivia's saying bye as well. Thanks, Liv, for all the questions today. I feel like you're our third guest today, which is awesome. See you, Liv. Have a great day. Cool. Awesome, mate. So I love it. If people are going to, now you mentioned a couple of things, and I won't keep you too much longer. You mentioned the Loom video thing, which I think is super cool. The ideas of opening and endings, making that first video, talking about your why. If people were pulling out the camera over the weekend, are there any other really practical things that you think, a beginner could use, could implement, could think about? Is it lighting? Is it backgrounds? Is it audio? What are some practical things that people could be thinking about as they start to create a few more videos?
Don't especially when you're starting out, try not to get stuck in that sort of zone where you're like, do I need the right lights? Do I need the right equipment? You can honestly just start with your phone. That's how I started. That's how a lot of us start. I'm probably sure that's how you started.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you can keep it real simple at the start. I think the main thing is people struggle with coming up with ideas, what works. I think I'm happy to share some of the tools I use, which can be really valuable. It's there's a website called Answer the Public. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
So you can put in a key term, for example, for you could put in leadership, and it collates about the top 50 to 100 frequently asked questions across the internet.
Whoa,
that's amazing. Really powerful. So for student leaders who are in an economics club or something like that, you can type in economics. It'll come up with, it's pretty sick.
Just blown my mind here. I need to show people this. This is epic.
So make sure you go for it.
I typed in leadership, and then it's got the why. Awesome. Oh my goodness, that is a game changer.
So right there is about 50 to 100 content ideas off the bat.
Yeah. Oh, mate, this is amazing. Imagine this for entrepreneurship stuff. So let's say you had, let's do it for video. And then this becomes a question and answer for each of these 50 ideas is a 100-page ebook.
And these are real life people asking these questions online. So,
wow. Video games rot your brain. It's interesting about video games, mate. What a resource!
Even Google Trends, even chasing up Twitter hashtag trends as well, seeing what's relevant, seeing what's trending right now. You could make a post around that. It doesn't always have to be question answer. You could also do a fun post based on what's trending in the world.
Mate, what a resource!
It's really powerful stuff.
That's so good. Well, this could be a fun experiment. Maybe I'll take this on as a bit of a challenge for myself and put out. This could even be a really fun learning unit thing that I'm playing with in Facebook, because you can put out a video and quizzes and stuff. So I could just sit down and just answer a bunch of these questions or share my sort of insights. And something I think maybe just putting a note on this, if people are like, well, how do I start here? The idea of creating content, I always think of I love the Gary Vee thing of documenting your journey. And so, the fact that you're studying right now during COVID makes interesting content because there's millions of students who are. The fact that you have a full-time job during COVID or you lost your job during COVID, there's millions of people in both of those situations. So I think sharing and putting out those ideas of just documenting what happened in your week, one video per week, and you're already in the 1 in 200 people who are sharing a piece of content.
Exactly.
And look, video is the richest media version of it all, but just still a text post. Like, I would love if every student was putting out a text post of like one thing they learned this week. At the end of the year, you save those 50 posts. You've got a 50-page thing of like, here's what I learned this year, which is interesting. Yeah, cool.
Or even just building the small habits of just creating a sort of asset bank, or like open a notes in your phone and just start listing content ideas. That's how I started when I first started out. Before I was like even thinking about writing posts, I was just building a whole list of content ideas that I wanted to later share. So yeah, even just starting from there.
I love that. I suppose as well with content too, like I think good content answers questions. That's why we've always got this show of like, how do I use video to make my personal brand? And these questions are often based on, well, they're always based on things that we hear from people we're trying to help. So I think the insight there is, if you're struggling with content, we're not asking enough questions. And to ask questions, we've got to find a real person with a real problem. So, you know, if you want to help people in a certain situation who, you know, are struggling with their finances or their health or their career or their whatever, find those people, speak to those people, figure out what questions they have. And then every question someone asks you is a potential piece of content. And you might know the answer. You might have a quick read, or it's true to your experience. Or if you don't, it's like going to Google, reading the first 5 articles, pulling the best bits together, and then going, here are my top 3 tips. It's like the best thing from 3 articles. Give credit to the sources, but like you have done the work to answer the question, and answering that question for one person, as you say with the LinkedIn inbox, probably answers it for a lot of different people. And then that content's rich. Like someone messaged me this morning literally saying, I lost my job because of COVID. I'm a student that I know pretty well. And he said, I'm starting a business. Do you have any advice? And I was like, yes, here's my YouTube video of half an hour of how do I start a business? And so because I'd created that for LinkedIn Live, rather than giving like a short little answer, I could be like, here's my half an hour answer. But then he can listen to that and ask me more questions. And then that's good inspiration for a part 2. And then the next person I go, well, here's part 1 and here's part 2. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds.
100%.
I love that. Mate, cool. People love it, loving the insights. I love the practicality of it. Vishwa also, Anthony, Vishwa would be a great person for you to get in touch with. She's setting up TEDx Vic Uni.
Yep.
So they're just kicking off this year. Vishwa's absolutely amazing, but TEDx Vic Uni, like especially getting into that TED space, they're super progressive, moving really quickly. So could definitely benefit from some of your expertise. So I'll definitely make that introduction too after today. But Vishwa's
for sure
always on the show.
Hey, Vishwa.
Cool. Oh, before we go, got to make sure, obviously, as we start to wrap up and move towards today, thank you for your comments. Other questions, other thoughts, please throw them below. Message me at any time, and we'll really think about that into the future. A couple of things that I really want to do before we go. Firstly is just share you directly. So if people want to reach out to you, obviously you're on LinkedIn. Is the best way to reach out through LinkedIn? Is it email? Is it through ANG? Like, where's the best?
I would say definitely LinkedIn. I'm probably the most active in terms of like social media platforms.
Cool.
On LinkedIn. So yeah, DMs are open 24/7.
Cool. I love that. And my other thought was, if people are listening, and particularly staff, and they're thinking like, okay, cool, like maybe some support with video would be really, really helpful. And whether that's for engaging students, O weeks in the middle of the year, telling student stories, welcoming people back from overseas. If they're keen to reach out to you as well, is LinkedIn still a good place to go for staff and potential business?
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Cool, man. Love it. Well, I know from experience when I shared jumping in the StreamYard community group, when I shared your little video introduction there, people were just bombarded with like, introduce us to this guy. And I became like your personal salesman in that group, which I'm always happy to do, which is very cool. So if people want to reach out to Anthony for anything, whether it's tips, insights, if you're a student out there and you're like, I'm just trying to find my way in the world, like Anthony's in the trenches doing it. Like, I think reaching out to people who are just doing the thing that they talk about, rather than just talking about it. It's like you're in the library, you're figuring it out, you're making it happen, and you're also providing work to other people. So I think before we end, I really just want to honor you for that, for doing it, for putting in the work, but also just always rocking a smile and quite the mustache at the same time as you've thought about your business.
Get a haircut as well.
Yeah, mate, tell me about it. But the way you do what you do, I think, is a testament. And I think it's something that I really would love to see that. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that magic source is for you, but there's something about the way you do what you do that I think if people could tap into that for their own version of that, it'd really help unlock some power. So go you, my man. Thank you for your time. Thanks for everyone for joining us and for the questions. Sarah, learning more about creating content and how to practically do this, for sure. Follow Anthony. Sarah's at Women in STEM at Swinburne as well. They've just rocked out with 3 webinars over the last couple of weeks. Herself and the team there are doing a killer job. So you guys should definitely meet up, chat.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So I'll stop being Anthony's PA and let you continue with your day. Thanks for joining. Everyone, before I let you go too, everyone, thank you for joining today. And for the first 30 episodes, putting 30 episodes out of something takes a lot of work from a lot of different people. So it's been my pleasure just to curate it. But we've had some amazing guests. And next week, I'll give you a quick rundown of what's coming up. So next week, we've got Sean from RMIT coming on talking about how volunteering can help reach your life and career goals. Tuesday, we've got Andy Foote, who's a LinkedIn expert, world-renowned, tuning in from the States, talking about how students can use LinkedIn for their careers. My cousin, whose name is Holly Woods, which is literally the coolest name on the whole planet. She's over in the US working with Facebook, and she's going to come on and talk about navigating career changes overseas. Thursday, we've got Terry Turak joining, also from the US. Actually, we've got 3 US guests next week. Terry's the Chief Innovation Officer at Enactus, and he'll be talking about the value of values, something we both really believe in. And then on Friday, I have my dear friend, my very good friend, Miriam Muhammad, coming on from Money Girl, talking about how to set goals and manage money. So if it's life, career, moving overseas, values, managing money, setting goals, if any of that appeals to you, next week we've got 5 very special episodes to share, all live on video using some of Anthony's tips too. All right, my friends. With that, that's a wrap for today. Awesome. Anthony, you're a legend. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Josh. Cheers, brother. Take care, guys.
See you, guys. Cheers. See you soon. Bye.